Everything's totally fine. What's even more fun is that there's so many different rules that no one ever knows. 100%. Oh my gosh. Are we here? Are we live? You all can hear us? Oh my goodness. Hello, lovelies. Thank you all for being here. Oh my gosh, Manda and I said the exact same thing. We're twinning. Love you, Manda, with all my heart. All the heart. Oh, yep, just got the Discord notification that we are live. Are you guys ready? Oh, super low. Super low sound. Oh no. Woo! 16 months. Thank you, Twy. Yeah. Indeed. The holes of the rabbits. Nope, actually, I regret saying that. It's just my brain went to a not. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. How about we just don't worry about it? Uh, sound is. Attempts can and will be made. In fact,
I don't think I was using the right microphone until now. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have the right mic set up on Zoom. Hello. I'd hope so. Cameron, hello. Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm so excited for today's stream. It's going to be incredible and wonderful and amazing and all things good. You hear me and no one else. Things are being clicked on to then be fixed. Boo for traffic, but yay for hopping on. Thank you.
There we go. Because,
There we go.
updates, and they turn everything off when you update, and then you have to go find it. Because
Indeed.
updates.
Now we're both here. Yay!
Yay! We're both
We
here.
got all of the troubleshooting aside now so that we don't have to worry about it later.
Yep. Let's see here. Let me double check something. I need to double check something.
You all can hear our lovely, fantastic voices now.
Of course they can.
Which is incredible. I also love how one of the tags is casual-ish.
Oh, I think that's great.
Semi-casual.
We are casual-ish. I'm 100%
Casual-ish.
here for casual-ish. Right?
Indeed.
Okay. No, we don't want that.
I'm pulling up my Google Drive document. I got some extra little things pulled up just in case we got questions, which, by the way, if you guys have any questions, we can do our best to answer them. Must say, not a professional archivist of Fey lore, but I did do research, so I'll try my hardest.
There we go, right? She did an amazing amount of research. I just kind of exist. All right, everybody. We are going to change over so we can both be seen and heard.
Oh, goodness.
Here we go. Fire! Hi, everybody. Yes, that's right. We have no adult supervision, friends, and this is woohoo! This is what it's gonna be about. So, I know, right? Get my good side. No, get my good side. No, I don't have a good side, but that's okay. Look at that one. She's got good sides. There she go. All right. All right, friends. Welcome to tonight's Lore Masters Arcanum, where we are going to be talking about the Feywild. Why? Because Rachel picked it.
It's true.
It's 100% true. And if you don't like tonight's show, you can blame her.
I'll take all of it. Take me
So-
to court. Sue me. Do what you must.
You, Amanda, you are one of the inmates, just like us. You can't really supervise. I'm just saying. Just putting that out there. Love you. Anyway.
And I agree to why.
Yep, sure. Okay, so friends, again, we are talking about the Feywild, the magical, mystical realm that is beyond, that is parallel, but not. That is where deals are made and bargains are struck, and it's not with the horned devils of Avernus. So, the Feywild. There are two very different takes on the Feywild, which is, so interesting, and I do love it. There's the happy-go-lucky, bubbly Feywild, which we all know and love, which is full of pixies and fairies and all the wonderful colors in the world. You can taste purple. It's amazing.
It's wonderful.
And it's wonderful. And then there's the other side of Fey, which is where I come in. And it's all about deals being struck and unending labyrinths and the power of the babe and the power of voodoo. Who do you do?
We all do.
We all do. And so we're going to deep dive and explore all that stuff this evening. All right. I don't have great intros on this one, friends. You're just going to have to strap in for the ride. So we're going to look at what is the Feywild. Where does it sit in the scope of things, right? Now, for this disclaimer, right? The bulk of the information on the Feywild, specifically related to D&D, right, is as an offshoot of Faerun. Yes, there are Feywild for Greyhawk. There are Feywild for various other settings that are out there, right? But we have to go with what is most plentiful. Now, the purpose of this is, are you a dungeon master who is looking to explore the Feywild, has thought of it? Maybe I might incorporate it. Maybe you've been playing the game for 30 plus years and you're running out of ideas and places to go and you've never thought about the Feywild. Well, you're in for a treat because she's going to sell you on why you should go to the Feywild. Me, I'm going to sit back here and be wacky inflatable flailing arm tube man. That's all that I'm here for. There's your sales pitch.
And the sales pitch begins now. As we all know, the Feywild is a parallel plane to the material plane. Now, it isn't like a direct one-to-one transition, but it rather exists in tandem with the material world and reflects it in many different ways. For example, in the material plane, you may have a lovely river that is just a bit brown and murky, and it does the job. It's a river. But in the Feywild, it might be this extravagant, clear, bright blue water that rushes and contains multitudes of life. And it's wonderful. However, as we all know and love about the Feywild, it can be particularly perilous to those who don't understand how it works. In a sense, as per the name of the show that we had, Down the Rabbit Hole, it is akin to Wonderland. Outsiders find it completely nonsensical, but to the locals, its obtuse rules are easy to follow. Part of the lore that we are getting into has to do, once again, as the disclaimer was said, the Forgotten Realms in Faerun. During the creation of the world, the ancient primordials crafted the physical world, after which the gods infused it with astral essence. They mixed this essence with creation and populated the world with mortals. Oh, our lovely playthings. However, some elements, not elephants, were too vivid and bright, while others were too dreary and dark. These pieces were cast away from the world and eventually clustered and merged to form echoes of the prime material plane. This is the 4th edition explanation of how the Feywild and the Shadowfell came into existence. However, there are earlier interpretations of the Feywild, which is really fun, such as Aboria, which is 2nd edition, and then the Plane of Fairy, which is 3rd edition, which then evolved into the Feywild for 4th and from here on. Which, like, we love to see it. We love to hear it. Do we have some else you would like to pull up?
We do. All right, so
Get out here, Thomas. 4E's fine.
Here, ew, 4E. Thomas, listen, there is some really good material that comes out of 4E, so I don't want to hear it. All right, the rules may not be great, but the actual setting material is pretty dang cool. All right, there we go. So here is your standard Fey realm area or whatnot, right? Now, to give you guys like an idea, right, of the Fey realm as in itself, it is an echo of our realm. That is the key thing that comes to it, right? Is that it is an echo. Just so think of it as long as you think of it in that construct, then it's a little bit easier to wrap your mind around.
Indeed. There are some very fun locations in the 4E and 5E version, especially that we can see on this map, such as the Plains of Echoing Thunder, which kind of segues us into, hey guys, the Feywild is home to a wide, diverse array of creatures, and as we know and love, there are fairies, there's pixies, there's dryads, there's elatrin, there's unicorns and satyrs, and then there's, as my lovely co-host Kurt knows, there is the darker side of the Feywild, such as the goblins and the hags and the Fomorians.
And there's so much. And red caps.
And so much more.
No. Okay, so in today's research, right? Hanging on for dear life here. All right, strap it. I'm calling me a hag. They have brownies. Brownies are kind of like pixies. They're a little bit.
Yeah.
No. So this area right over here. Right over here. The Broken Veil. Okay, so me personally, I'm not generally one for Feywild stuff. It's just not my bag, right? Okay, it's really not. However, I make a point to try and find in every realm that exists something I like about it. And today I found it, right? And it is this place over here, the Broken Veil. Right over here. Why? Because it is an entire kingdom and society of werewolves. Yep, that's right. Lycanthropes. Like, I'm just like, I am so fascinated by this on levels that I can't even begin to really like grasp. I'm like, but how do they work? How do they do? What do they do? But then they've got all these other kingdoms that they have to deal with and they have to fight with and they have to all this stuff. It's great. It's great and it's wonderful. I personally, that's my little niche. That's my little niche of the Feywild corner that I'm gonna grab onto because to me it feels like it could lead right into the Dread Realms and I'm okay with that. Oh man, yeah, werewolves.
You want to know a little more about it?
I do. I want to know more about it. I have a lightsaber chopstick and I have a notepad to imagine right on. And so tell me more about this mythical land of werewolves.
So from the Faerun homepage on World Anvil, they have a whole unit on settlements within the Feywild, and one of them happens to be the Brokenstone Vale. It is a forested valley in the Feywild, home to a very large population of werewolves. And according to the ancient pact between the werewolves and the Court of Stars, no traveler was to set foot in the Vale, else their life was forfeit. In return, any werewolf found outside of the Vale was treated in the same way. The Maiden of the Moon enforces this pact with her silver blades and a moon bow. While most werewolves live deep in the valley, those that wish to live as humanoids have a small community at the edge of the vale alongside the river that delimits its border. There, werewolves trade with Fae for supplies they do not have in exchange for rare wood harvested from deeper in the valley. Despite this pact, the areas around the Broken Stone Vale are unsafe. Many werewolves chafe at the restrictions imposed on them by the Court of Stars and leave the Vale when the moon rises, especially the full moon. The howling of werewolves can be heard in the forested mountains surrounding the Vale, and the inhabitants of those mountains paint their doors with silver to ward off the werewolves. The slopes of the Vale are covered in the wolfsbane plant, which is said to transform a werewolf back into its humanoid form. However, the slopes are also frequented by witches and hags, who are just as dangerous as the werewolves. Now, that doesn't give a lot of information on the civilization of the werewolves, so we can throw ourselves at that as much as we want.
Oh, yeah, we can have a whole lot of fun with that. I mean, this place sounds cool. This place sounds awesome. It sounds like there's a hidden society in there, and I'm about it. It really does.
Love hidden societies.
I am. All right.
I do love them.
Well, now that we've taken a little dive into that one.
Hey, little detour.
little detour. All right. Let's talk about this place that you love, right?
Yes.
I know that you have spent extensive hours looking into this. So let's hear a little bit more. Who rules there? Like, what kind of a what? You're a DM, right? You're a DM. Get your brain on. Get your DM hat on. You are a lore master of the Arcanum, right?
Yeah, I am.
You're gonna run an
CV.
It is? All right. I need to update mine. So you're gonna set a story here, right?
Yes.
Where area are you gonna put it in, and why? Why are you gonna put it in that area?
So, fun facts. I was planning on running a campaign set in the Feywild that was kind of akin to Dimension 20's A Court of Fey and Flowers, but much more deadly and political and brutal. And it was certainly going to involve overthrowing the Unseelie Queen and also having one of the player characters attempt to become the dominant military force at the two courts. It was going to be fun. Didn't end up happening, but with that being said, I've done a lot of research into the different courts and the political and social systems within the Feywild. And so with that being said, there is the Seelie Court and the Unseelie Court. And then, of course, mentioned was the Court of Stars, and then there are the Uncourted. The Seelie Court is ruled by Queen Titania, who, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. The lore behind Titania and the Queen of Air and Darkness, who is the Queen of the Unseelie Court, is not my favorite. It's not my favorite, and I'll tell you why. Because they're sisters. The Queen of Air and Darkness used to be a Seelie court member, and until one day, some dwarves from the mountains came by to bestow a gift to the Seelie court, and it was a black diamond. And the Queen of Air and Darkness was like, hey, thanks so much. Touched it, gave it, and then it immediately corrupted her, and she flew off like the Wicked Witch of the West to then have and take over the Unseelie court. And that just feels like it could be better. I'm gonna be honest. It feels like it could be better. And yes, I was going to lie. I am a liar at heart. All of you guys should know this. That too was a lie. You never know when the trick stops. But
I'm here for it. I'm here. I'm good. Let's go.
The Seelie Court is seen. Something I should also touch on. This is the ADHD coming out. There is no good or evil within the Feywild.
Yes.
That is something that I adore about the Feywild, is that the moral ambiguity of all of this. Good and evil are for the mortals. That is how they dictate the morality. But for the Fey, it is absolute chaos, and it's fantastic.
My personal. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. What's
no.
personal?
So one thing that I love about the Fae, right? that I think is very interesting, right? And this falls into that good and evil kind of thing, right? Is the idea of their morality doesn't work like ours. It's truly alien, right? Because, as an example, right, in Fey, right, it's ludicrous. It's supposed to be that way, right? And so, whereas if I say kill Rachel's character, right, in front of everybody, right, out of nowhere, they'll be like, oh, well, that's her fault. What do you mean it's her fault? He just up and killed her. Yes, but unfortunately, she was wearing green socks on a Thursday, and that is a no-no. Whereas if you forget to put your pinky out when you're sipping tea, they'll behead you right on the spot because that is the most grievous offense one can commit.
How unhospitable.
How unhospitable.
It is truly a delight.
It's
and
nuts.
going off of that.
Yeah, sorry. It's nuts
No,
when it
you're
comes to
good.
their morality. I'm like, this is crazy. I love it.
It's what makes the Feywild the Feywild.
Mm-hmm.
With that morality being ambiguous and crazy and fun and all things chaos, there is no good or evil when it comes to the Seelie Court and the Unseelie Court. Just like many people, there's a wide variety of those that would be considered good and those that would be considered evil within both courts. The Seelie Court tends to have more of an appreciation of nature. It is also known as the Summer Court in that it is perpetually stuck in constant summer. There are greenery, trees everywhere, flowers of vibrant and ostentatious smells. It's gorgeous and also frightening at times by how exuberant it is. And then there's the Unseelie Court, which has pretty much home to all of the unwanteds of the Seelie. Seelie loves beauty. Unseelie doesn't particularly care about that.
Some of my favorite monsters come from the Unseelie Court.
Yes.
So,
And do we want to go into them?
we can if you like. So, one of the things that I am a giant fan of the Unseelie Court because it has everything that goes bump in the night. The Unseelie Court, even though they are often viewed as, we'll say, I don't want to say the bad guys, okay? But
They can be viewed as
they
that.
can be viewed that way. But they kind of, they're more, yes, they're a little bit more malicious.
Malicious. That's a good
The
word.
thing that I like about them the most is that if there is a Fae that is to travel between realms, more than likely it's going to come from the Unseelie Court than it will from the Seelie Court. So, Seelie Court members, when adventurers stumble into the Feywild, find adventurers absolutely fascinating. This is new. This is, oh, wait, you're a human? What is a human? What is this? What's this, right? Whereas an
Your eyes are
Unseelie,
so small.
they're so small and like
And
why
plain.
do you and plain? Where's your glow, right? Whereas the Unseelie Court they have access, for lack of a better term, almost a direct link to the Shadowfell, and through the Shadowfell they can enter the material plane. So they're much more inclined to move between the realms because the Seelie Court essentially has paradise. The Unseelie Court doesn't. And that being one of my favorite little monsters to have, my favorite random encounter ever in any game, Darklings. Now, Darklings are one of my favorites. They're always one of my favorites because they can happen anywhere at any time. Because their whole thing is based around capturing people and taking them back to the Feywild, right? Whether to eat, sell, or trade. Like, that's 100%, right? And so they're great because they can pop up anywhere, right? You're walking, into the thick of it, and Darklings. What? Like, oh no, right? And they're tiny but mighty, and there are always a lot of them, and they're just it could get really overwhelming really fast. But like also the Unseelie Court has all of the cast outs, all of the not pretty enoughs, right? But it's weird when you encounter them because we as humans look at them and we're like, wow, they're actually really beautiful, they're breathtaking, they're this, that, or the other, right? Well, you see, in the Seelie Court, she was cast out because she had but one single strand of blonde hair in that whole mess of brunette. How dare she? How dare she?
Thank you for the raid, Art of Mike Disney.
Hey, Mike, thank you very much for that raid. Greatly appreciate it. I'm glad to have you on in here. Hi, Raiders.
We're talking about the Feywild. It's very fun.
We are discussing the Feywild and all its weird idiosyncrasies and nutsness. The focus of this, as much as our two addled brains can come, to focus with, right, is we're exploring the Feywild for the prospect of a DM and little nuggets and little hints here and there that would spark a DM to want to send an adventure here or perhaps explore a little bit further. And so right now we're talking about the Unseelie and Seelie Court and some of the various monsters that are there, right? Now, some of you may be saying, because we have a morally ambiguous area when it comes to the Feywild, they have very strict, like they have good and evil, alignments within the Feywild, right? But the definition of what is good and what is evil, right, is subject to the alien nature that is the Feywild. Because the Feywild in and of itself is its own living, breathing thing. It's not just a land, right? The Feywild has all sorts of magic that is just around. One of the things that I love, that I personally found that I thought was really cool about the Feywild as I was doing a little bit of research in it, right? It is an optional mechanic, right? But I like the idea. Because the Feywild is so imbued with magic, because magic flows like water, right? Mm-hmm. Buffing every spell that's ever cast there. So, like, make all your spells cast at a level higher or a tier higher, right? Just because you were around that raw magical essence, right? Mm-hmm. Which also makes it to where things have to be a little bit more careful when you're casting Fireball and you're not an invoker. So keep that in mind. But it is something that's really, really cool.
Something kind of building off of that, mm-hmm. There is something that is also entirely optional, not necessarily written in stone anywhere in any of the books, but if one were to cast Detect Magic, you would just be blinded.
Yes.
It's everywhere. Yes. It is everything.
Everywhere. everything you touch, everything you drink, everything you all of that stuff, right, is all magical, right? So it's really neat in that sense, because another thing that's really cool about the Feywild is some spells don't work, right? Now, granted, obviously this is the thing, but in a world that is everything is magic, how can you possibly dispel it? Because that's what everything is, right? So it's a little bit of nuggets that I found that I thought was really, really interesting, right?
Yes. We were talking about Darklings, and that made me want to hop to the topic of, they said that they will appear within the mortal realm, mm-hmm. to snatch away humans to then either feed or kill or sell. Mm-hmm. If you are a DM, you might be wondering, other than Darklings, how would I get my players to the Feywild? Yes. And boy, let me tell you, there's a lot of different ways. Of course, there's the traditional spells like Plane Shift and Gate, but those are mm-hmm. normally for a lot higher level characters, and you can also make it a lot more fun than that. Just saying. There are fairy gates / portals, which could be seen as like Stonehenge, the glittering gate between the stones, places that are used as gateways by the unseelie to get to the mortal realm. But then my favorite are things called Fey crossings, which are not as clearly dictated in the world. These are the representation of a hazy reflection where the Feywild and the material plane are only separated by a very thin veil. Many can pass through these crossings without realizing they've even entered a different plane. And you could just be walking through a beautiful orchard, and suddenly everything's just a lot brighter and more colorful than you remember it. And you're in the backyard of some archfey who has a grand garden that you're lost in. Or you could be taking a dip into a beautiful river or stream, and you come up and suddenly things are a bit different and your clothes and equipment are nowhere to be found and you don't know where you are. It can make for a lot of very interesting and unique entrances to the Feywild, which is always fun, because why not start it off with a little bit of chaos with a place that is absolutely known for chaos.
The thing that I love, right? One of the things that I haven't done, but I've seen done, and I thought it was really freaking cool, right? And we're gonna touch on a little bit another mechanic of the Feywild, right? Which we can kind of dig into or whatnot, right? So, right, a town is being attacked by a dragon, a lich lord, whatever, right? And these players, right? They're like level 3, right? What are we going to do against something that powerful, right? But they're the only people there. They're the only ones who can mount any sort of a defense. But they've got to travel through woods to get to it, right? My favorite thing that I've seen done is having players travel through the woods and slip into the Feywild by failing a survival check. Because we use survival checks in order to get through the woods and navigate, right? So they're traveling through the woods, they fail a survival check, and the DM just makes a note. And then after a little bit longer of them pressing through, you make a perception check. Wow, that rock looks familiar. Are we walking in circles? And then you slowly start to introduce new things of, well, those mushrooms are a little bit brighter. That caterpillar and that butterfly is a little bit brighter, right? And suddenly they find themselves in the Feywild, right? And you can have a whole ass adventure in the Feywild. And then they gain a few levels, what have you. They find some magical weapon. They find the lost sword of dragon scale slaying or what have you, right? That's there in the Feywild. And when they come back, right? They're older, they're wiser, they're more powerful. But in the material world, right? It could have been less than 30 minutes or it could have been 30 years. Because time works significantly differently in the Feywild than it does in the real world, right? That's the thing that makes the Feywild really interesting, especially if you need to have a little bit of a side quest that gives your players a chance to do something a little different, a little more, right? But is easily usable. It's one of the cool things. It's that whole
so cool.
It's that whole thing of taking advantage, right? Like, I'm sure we'll cover the Dread Realms at some point, right? But that's one of my favorite things about the Realms of Dread and going to Ravenloft and going to Dakin and all of that stuff, right? Because the mists can simply take you while you're sleeping. Same thing with the Feywild. You could have gone left around that stone when really you should always go right around that stone and you're in the Feywild. It's so cool how you can just get there and just be there.
I love that survival check idea and I am absolutely stealing it no matter what. That's incredible and I love it so much. And talking about time distortion, I did, as I stated previously, quite a bit of research, and the time and memory function so differently in the Feywild. As you gave the example, a few days in the Feywild could equate to mere minutes on the prime material plane, or, as in third edition states, a day in the Feywild could mean a week in the prime material plane. The time distortion is encapsulated by a concept that they call the flowing time, wherein time lost on the plane of fairies, as dictated by third edition, catches up with the traveler upon returning to a plane with a normal time trait. This essentially means that if, once again, optional rules, all of these are optional. If you're a DM, you can do as you please. Throw in as many rules as you want, take out as many rules as you want. But flowing time is very interesting in the way of, let's say, a human of 20 gets snatched up into the Fae. They live there for what feels like a year. They come back out. It's been 30 years, and it immediately catches up to them. They then are 50 years old in a matter of seconds, minutes. And that could be particularly deadly to people who, stay for a prolonged period of time, longer than that, and that they could die immediately upon returning back to the material plane. And this becomes especially significant given there are Fae who view mortals as playthings or prey and may manipulate the time differential to their advantage. In 5e, obviously time warping and memory loss, which also is a thing that can happen. Memory can get phasey in the Feywild. They're listed as optional. Allows for extensive customization based off of preferences from the DM and the players. So, choose as you will, do as you must. But the strangeness of the time also means that there is a lot of strangeness with the weather. As I've mentioned previously, with the Seelie Court, also known as the Summer Court, it is perpetually stuck in summer, and for the Unseelie Court, which is also known as the Winter Court, it is perpetually stuck in endless winter. And this can also do fun things. Once again, it is an echo of the material plane, so if there is a horrifying tornado or hurricane that hits part of the material plane, there is probably something even more terrifying and even more outrageous that hits the Feywild. And probably magical as well.
Right?
Wild stuff.
Wild!
It's so fun.
Talking about a little bit of the courts, right? We continually talk about the Seelie and the Unseelie Court. Now, for those of you here who are World of Darkness fans, one of the things that I have always adopted is I enjoy the Seelie Court and the Unseelie Court, don't get me wrong. However, if you are familiar with the World of Darkness, specifically Changeling the Lost and even Changeling the Lost, they had seasonal courts. And I took that idea and ran with it. Thinking about a Feywild world, right? Where it is 100%, instead of just having light and dark, having, the summer and the winter and whatnot, you had all the seasons. You had an autumn court. You had a spring court. You had a summer court. You had a winter court, right? And all the different ways that would affect people. And the way that the Feywilds work, right? Because it's different when you have you have your polars, right? But what about happens and what kind of stories can you tell when you're in the springtime, right? When winter is fading and summer is coming to be, or when summer is fading and winter is coming to be, right? There's whole worlds that exist within those seasons, right? And getting caught in one of those seasons, one of those courts might have a bit different of a feeling, a different kind of reflection on how you and your players play and the stories you tell, depending upon which one. Me personally, I'd forever hang out in the autumn court. That's just me, because all the trees are brown and the trees are brown and the trees are brown. Yes, the
The
hedge.
red and the orange and the yellow are the best parts.
I mean, they are. I mean, it's all about the. I mean, it's the court of forever. Of forever Han Solo pants, pumpkin spice everything, and we're just like, that's where I'll live. I'll be good to go.
Oh my gosh. You could move your Halloween tree, your spooky tree there.
My spooky
It would
tree.
be totally in place. Halloween forever.
I know. I'm just gonna live there from now on. You got the rest of the show. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, hey everyone. Kurt's MIA, not coming back. So sorry. Stuck with me. I could talk a bit more about the courts. I did say that they were ruled by Queen Titania of the Summer
There are.
Court. And
Let's talk about them. Go forward. We're both squirrels. We're just chasing nuts everywhere we go.
I'm so sorry, folks. We're hippity hopping all types of places. I've
Welcome
tried
to the
talking about
Feywild.
this. Hey, it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Summer Court, as it is known, it is a place of beauty and warmth and abundance and pleasure and wit and charm and all of the aspects of the Summer Archfey. It is ruled by Titania, who is also known as the Maiden of Summer, who typically appears as this beautiful Eladrin maiden with hair that looks to be made of gold itself. She is carefully guarded, especially around mortals, emotionally, I should say. Also, probably physically. But she has the Queen's Consort, or King Consort, it would be, which is Oberon, as we all know. The on and off love that they have for each other, the push and pull of romance. And what I really like about the Summer Court, that the Winter Court or Unseelie Court doesn't have, is that they have inner circles and outer circles. These are mostly... There are a lot of different beings that are on it, but most of them have immense power and are typically ruling of some type of race, such as... oh gosh, I would pronounce these names, but I'm gonna be honest. Give
it a try.
I'll go with the easiest, which is Verinestra, who is the patron of nymphs, dryads, and sylphs. And that is also the daughter of Titania. She is a beautiful, beautiful person, typically taking the form of a dryad herself. And it is also rumored that she can take the form of whatever person viewing her finds most attractive. So...
bonus.
Fun. Then there is the court jester, who is also the patron of leprechauns, who I want to say it's pronounced Squeaik, but I feel like that's wrong. It's Squealiaiche. Skalash. A lot of these I'm not going to be able to pronounce. I'm so sorry, friends. Then there's the patron of unicorns and Pegasi, and then the son of Titania and Oberon, and patron of satyrs, chorids, and atomies, Dom. And those are all the members of the inner court, but then there's the outer court, which has the patron of treants, and the patron goddess of the swan maze, and patron of fairy dragons and pseudo-dragons, and a literal god, Scarret, who is the patron of centaurs. It is literally the god of centaurs. Just in an outer court, casually. And that's just very fun. For the Unseelie Court, a lot of the people that are involved with that are not listed out very well because I assume they prefer to have secrecy. However, we obviously have Queen Mab, or the Queen of Air and Darkness, who is the Queen of the Winter Court. We know that there is, I want to say Luke? Luach? Laoch?
Laoch? Locke?
Locke?
Laoch?
Who is essentially the soldier of the Unseelie. Then there's Banrian, who is an ancient archfey who is a veteran of the first wars between the three courts, the third being the Court of Stars, which I will get to momentarily. Though it's not, there's like a little information I got on it. I don't have a ton of information on it, but I'll get there. Very, very angry and violent and very fierce to Mab. Fiercely loyal, I should say, to Mab. There is Diane Sect? Cecht? There's a lot of these CHs, and I never know.
Ch.
Anyways, a very skilled healer who appears as a kindly satyr carrying a goblet and a staff made of myrtle and accompanied by a Caldrius, which is a mythical snow white bird that absorbs illnesses. Heck yeah to him. There is a person called the White Rose, who is rarely seen. They act from the shadows, and if she is seen, she is wearing a white veil and long robes, which entirely disguise her appearance. And she carries a single white rose that contains infinite amounts of poisons. Heck yeah! Then the Lady of Glass, who appears as a statue of a woman made of glass. And she can tell people's deepest fears and innermost desires just by looking at them, and can also see memories and appear as characters from those memories.
Yep.
It's great.
Yep.
And then lastly, we have the three-eyed giant, who is technically a Fomorian, which I'll get to. He led forces of Fomorians who allied themselves with the Unseelie Fae, and is still a key member of the Unseelie Court. Giant, 15 foot, he has 3 eyes, 2 that are really small, and then a third one in the center. Keeps it permanently closed, but it is opened to destroy anything upon which his gaze falls. It's good stuff.
Right?
Then, Court of Stars. The only thing that I have on the Court of Stars is that it is a Seelie Fae parliament that assembles several times per year on no set schedule, because time, who has it? No one does. When the Court of Stars assembles, the various archfey of the Seelie and Unseelie Fae temporarily merge their courts into a single congress for various purposes.
That doesn't
Fun
sound
stuff.
That doesn't sound concerning in any capacity
No,
whatsoever.
not at all. It's not like wars are put to stop so that they can hold Congress. It's fine.
Right.
And one of my personal favorite places in the Feywild. You guys know the Underdark and the Mortal Plane. Well, guess what? Not only does the Shadowfell have the Shadow Dark, which, funny, but the Feywild has the Feydark, and that's where the Fomorians are. Who are the Fomorians, you may ask? Well, boy howdy, I'll tell you. They used to be the most beautiful creatures in the Fae until they were then cursed by the Seelie Court because they lied, essentially, to then their insides reflected their outsides, and they are very not pleasant to look at. I don't know if we have a picture.
So I looked, right, and there was no one unifying image for them.
Yeah.
They're a little bit harder. They were a little bit harder to they were a little bit harder to.
Do you want me to send you one?
Do you have one that is not like that can go on TV? Because like all the other ones, like they weren't. The ones I found were not.
This is at
good.
least the one that is put on the stat block for Fomorians.
Ah, yes. Okay. Hang on.
They are the primary individuals that live in the Feydark. And they have a very cool ability called Curse of the Evil Eye, which essentially means when a Fomorian uses an evil eye, which I can read you off the stat block here, the Fomorian magically forces a creature it can see within 60 feet of it to make a DC 14 Charisma saving throw or take 68 psychic damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. once per short or long rest with a stare,
Look at this thing.
and on a failed save, the creature is also cursed with magical deformities. While deformed, the creature has its speed halved and disadvantaged on ability checks and saving throws and attacks based off of strength and dexterity. And the transformed creature can repeat the saving throw whenever it finishes a long rest, ending the effect on a success.
So don't go down there.
They're scary, and they will do scary things to you. And they're very big. They are essentially kind of like giants in their height. And also the curse kind of made them not only not very pleasant to look at, but also not very pleasant mentally. They got a lot of evil in them. You don't want to mess with them. But hey, they're good if you want to use as like a BBEG of some type.
There you go.
Think about it. Another fun fact about... go ahead.
June Soldier is asking, are they still considered giant, like in AD&D? Do they have the giant tag?
Let me see, and I will tell you. Ba-ba-da-ba. Yes, they are considered giants. A huge giant. And they are chaotic evil.
Go figure.
Everything in the Fae is chaotic.
Go figure.
Go figure. Absolutely.
All right.
Once again, as the Echo, the Feywild is of the material plane. The material plane has some mushrooms in the Underdark. They got some cool lichen. They got some interesting stuff down there. But in the Feywild, it is 10 times that. There are giant luminescent mushrooms that glow and can do wondrous things like potentially kill you. And then there's moss that could kind of come to life and potentially suck you dry of life.
Fun.
Because they need it. It's
because they need it. Stuff
is great.
Right. Blood mushrooms.
No need to worry.
Blood mushrooms are great. They're
everyone can
things.
go to the Fey Dark and definitely not die instantly. It's
so.
Fine.
I mean, yeah, right. That's totally not. Yeah, that's safe. All right. Yeah. So one of the things. What are some rules of the Fae? Right? We've already covered that. We've already covered things like that time works differently there, right? Mm-hmm. We've also covered the fact that there are, generally speaking, ruling courts that exist.
Yes.
Right? But what are what I guess you could say considered staple rules of the Feywild?
Well, I'm going to be referring to, if you guys watch Tears of Aird, the rules that Dahlia, Cameron's character, set in place for us upon entering the forest, which is, number 1, don't give anyone your name. If you do, they can take it. You don't want that.
What is that?
Scenario A.
What does that mean, though?
A Fae approaches you and says, may I have your name? You give them your name because why wouldn't you? They're just asking for your name. And now you don't own your name anymore. You don't remember what your name was. You don't have your identity. No, the Fae has that identity because you just willingly gave it to them.
So.
Not good.
So. Rule on this one, right? I've been caught up in the name game before, right? Okay. So, if you're going to play that rule, right, with the what is a name, right, it's all a matter in the approach. A Fae can say, what is your name, right? And you stating your name does not mean you lose your name. Mm-hmm. However, if a Fae approaches and says, hello, can I have your name? Then, by all means, create something else. Or, better yet, give them the name of a most hated enemy of your own. Because that power is not limited to just their realm.
I'm writing this down for Tears of Aird. Hear that, John? Von Poppin's going down!
Right?
Or, if you want to kind of circumvent it, you could always say, you may not have my name, but you can call me.
Yes. I love that. Or a nickname if you have a nickname of some kind or whatnot. So
Even
don't
then,
always.
sometimes I wouldn't chance it.
Yeah, that. I mean, you are kind of risking it on that one, but you know.
Then there is, of course, rule number 2. Don't consume any food or drink that is given to you. And there are 2 reasons for this. Number 1, you could owe whoever it is that you take the food from because it is not necessarily considered a gift. Because there is kind of a secondary rule of anything that is given to you, you are kind of then in debt for, and either have to give a gift of equal measure or just have it as a I'll owe you later. And you don't want to owe a Fae. You really don't want to owe a Fae. And I'm looking at you, Dahlia. You don't want to owe a Fae. Secondly,
you've been warned.
I think it's already happened. I'm going to be honest, Chief. But secondly, you could potentially be stuck in the Feywild forever. I don't know the exact ruling as to why this is, but consuming food or drink from the Feywild may mean you cannot ever return to the material plane. Which, unless that's what you want, which you might, and that's cool, but you probably don't. You probably have a family you want to see at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah, Fauna.
Yeah. Fauna? What have you done? Oh no! Is it Brynleaf? I bet you it's Brynleaf.
So,
that son of a gun.
One thing, right? When it comes to this kind of stuff, right? As a GM, from a GM perspective, right? It is looking at it from the perspective of how much of a stickler, because I think I've already met my swear word quota for the night. 4-letter word begins with D, ends with a K. You want to be with it, right? Now, I've seen Feywild played 2 ways, especially with the idea of food, right? I've seen like where Twy's talking about if you eat of the realm, you become of the realm, right? Which can happen, right? And I've also seen where don't accept food offerings, right? But the Fae are very particular, right? If a Fae offers you a drink, right? No, by all means, don't refuse it. But if you happen to pick your own drink up off the table, that's not the same thing. And that is one of the things where when you look at the Fae and their society and their various cultures and stuff like that, right? To keep in mind, right, is that they are very particular about manners and the words that they use. So anybody who's an English major and running a game in the Feywild, keep your dictionary handy because they will use words that you're not familiar with, but you think you know what they mean, and then you're screwed.
That reminds me of another rule, the kind of like don't take things from Fae, that I find very interesting, that I don't see many places, but it's the sort of rule of hospitality. Of if you enter a Fae's area, realm, whatever, which they're looking over, they must give you complete and utter hospitality unless you give them a reason not to.
Yes.
Which makes it interesting with the rule of don't accept food or drink, because what if they view that as unhospitable, of not accepting this food and drink that they've offered? And it could just be played so many different ways. And
there's interesting things about it, right? So one way to work around it, right? I've played in the Feywild before, but it wasn't for very long. But one thing I've always I understood as essentially was the law of equivalent exchange, right? Thank you, Full Metal Alchemist, for that line alone, right? Okay. So one thing I always thought was that I found was interesting was they offer you a drink, right? Because of the laws of hospitality, right? Well, you accept that drink not thinking about it, right? But you pay attention to see when their cup is empty. and then you immediately offer them a drink. Now the debt is repaid. So it's all about back and forth the whole time you're playing a little chess game with them, right? But one thing that is very important that I very much learned while running around in the Feywild for the very brief time that I did is don't take anything from the Feywild. What I mean by that is don't, like, because the world is magical, right? Sometimes taking items, like, say you're a very cunning rogue and you decide to lift the Vorpal sword that sits above the mantle of the local fairy that you're currently hanging out with, who's offered you hospitality, right? Because you're a rogue and you can't help yourself and you've got to get your sticky little thievy fingers on it, right? Because that's why you played it. And then when everybody's leaving the Feywild, you find that you're stuck here because you can't leave with it. But you can't admit that you stole it. Because if you admit that you stole it, then they have the right to kill you. Because we don't tolerate thievery in the Feywild. So what do?
It tripped and fell into my pockets. Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, goodness. Rules of the Feywild are so fun.
They are.
Um,
They are. However, what about let's talk about some of these questions because I got some doozy questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so here is you became recovered of historical prosperity. Sure. So, all right. So, I loaded this question for you, so you should have a dang good answer for this one. Right?
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, friends. So, the Feywild, as we all know, when we look at the Feywild, whether it be from Castles and Crusades, Dungeons and Dragons, any other sort of fantasy-based role-playing game, the majority of the Feywild is derived from European folklore, right? What elements or ways would you go about incorporating other cultures and other cultures' folklore into the Feywild, given your setting?
So, I have thought about this quite a bit since you sent it to me, because it's a very cool question. And as we know, a lot of the cultures that exist within the Feywild from our world have to do a lot with like Greek and English and German and French folklores and myths and fairy tales and all of that fun stuff, which is really cool and really awesome. But there's also so many other really cool cultures and folklore that is used out there. And some of my favorites being like South African and Egyptian and Japanese folklore, because all of those are so freaking cool. And there's so many more that obviously so many different types of cultures, so much different types of folklore. But something that I would certainly want to do is take a look at those. Any types of rules would be fun to add.
Yeah.
Creatures, of course, any mythos that could be added into it as powerful archfey. And yes, exactly, as Amanda said, utterly amazing and simply terrifying. And that's also what I just love about the Feywild, is that it is beautiful and surreal and enchanting, but also creepy and almost Uncanny Valley-esque.
Right? Imagine a Japanese version of the laws of hospitality versus a European laws of hospitality.
Yeah. So cool. There's just, oh my gosh, there's so much that you could do with it. What is your answer?
Well, so like for me, a part of it is just it's a lot of this stuff, right? The one thing that's really great about folklore, right, is that when you look at folklore, you'll find that many places and many cultures, right, have a lot of parallels, right, in the in their folklore, right? Like The Japanese, as an example, they have their own version of like a banshee, as an example, right? That's ingrained into their folklore. They have their own version of pixies and sprites and stuff like that or whatnot, right? However, 9 times out of 10, theirs aren't ever good omens, but they exist, right? So I've always looked at it from the perspective of, like I was saying earlier, one of the first lines about the Feywild is an echo of the material plane, right? So you can really take any of those things and put them in the Feywild as long as it's done carefully and with respect, right?
Yes.
But you can mimic it to anything because it is an echo of where they're at. So if they're in, if your adventurers are in a place that has a lot of heavy, what we would consider, Asian influence or something along those lines, right? The Feywild of that realm, wherever they crossed into, would be a reflection of that. Just like if they're in a land or an area where there's it has a very deserty or Egyptian type theme, right? Which we're all familiar with, right? It's the Feywild there would have a similar effect, a similar reflection of what it would be. But instead of people putting on headdresses to look like Anubis, you just have actual Anubi walking around, and that's kind of scary. But that's just me.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Right? Like nothing like, walking the wrong way around a dune, and then suddenly there's like a humanoid body with an alligator head staring at you, and you're pretty sure it's not a Yanti.
Terrifying.
Yes. Make it so your Feywild borders that parallel your normal world, and then in each country the rules change because the boundaries are blurry to humans. Exactly. Yep. Just like
Taking
that.
rules of the human world and just twisting them.
Mm-hmm. Just twisting them just a little bit, and that's the thing too. That's the thing too, right? It's not. Oof, my hair is just doing this thing, and I can't stop freaking touching it. Sorry. It was like anyway. One of the things, yeah, right, because I feel like it's poofing. Anyway, one of the things that's really important to understand, like from a GM perspective, if you're considering going into the Feywild, this is a GM, the GM to GM talk, right? Okay, if you have been afraid of the GM because it seems afraid of not the GM, the Feywild, because it seems too alien. There's too many things that exist there for you to really kind of keep track of. It's hard to draw a lot of parallels, right? If you put it in this context, right, it's not that hard when you really think about it, right? Okay. So, if you're going to go into the Feywild, imagine, if you will, all right, you're 8 or 9 years old, right? And you're going to your first sleepover at a friend's house, right? At this point, you only know how your household runs outside of school and close family members, for the most part, right? This is the first time you're going to another person's home that isn't your family or close family member, right? Think about how different everything was. Not that it was super like polarizingly different, right? But the subtle differences that were there that were just off enough, right? Well, we eat dinner at 6, not 7. Well, we always say, say a blessing or give thanks or something along those lines, right? And it has to be meaningful and from the person. Whereas you're not really used to doing that. You only ever pray or give thanks when you're at church or something like that, right? Well, we know that, here when we're at our house or I'm at my house, anybody can sit anywhere, right? But we all know in say Rachel's house, oh, that's dad's chair. You will sit on the floor before you sit in dad's chair, kind of thing, right? It's those simple things that are different enough that that you're welcome, but you also always have that ease of unwelcome because it's not your home, right? And so when you approach the Feywild with that thought process of, oh, no, we don't go over in that corner of the yard. Well, there's nothing over there but a single tree. Yeah, I know. We don't go near that tree ever, right? And you being a dumb 8-year-old will try and push that boundary, and you'll find out why you don't go near that tree, right? Simple as that. And then what you think is perfectly fine and normal, you don't go near that tree, you don't touch that tree, you don't this, that, or the other, whatever, right? Because what you don't know about that tree, as a prime example, was somebody's great-great-grandfather planted that tree, and that tree's been growing for the last 100 years or something like that. So it's very sacred. It's very, to the family or whatever, right? So when you approach it with that kind of mindset, the Feywild isn't as difficult to tackle of a realm. And you can tell some really cool stories in it and learn a lot about people in your group. That's what I love about the Feywild. Much like the Dread Realms, right? The Feywild is a really cool place to learn more about the people you're playing with than necessarily with the realm itself, because it forces a lot more moral decisions and, like group quandaries than you would in a normal material plane, right? Because you have the normal laws that govern you in the material plane. But now you're in a place where physics don't matter, but making sure you wear a black tie on a Tuesday is always paramount. It's one of those like, okay, it's kind of cool, but kind of crazy. Oh, and by the way, in answer to Thomas's question earlier, the Goblin King, Jared is the Goblin King. We all know that Jared is the Goblin King.
It's Jared, of course. It's definitely not the Great Gark, Lord of all the Goblins. Certainly not. Not in a place called Noctur. Definitely not. Definitely not a thing on the 4E.
No, Jared is the Goblin King because he's got the power of the babe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he dances and
Naturally.
sings.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know what Goblin King you're talking about.
The one that isn't the Goblin King, of course.
No, that doesn't sound like him at all. The power, exactly. That's right. The Jareth power of the bulge. Oh, yes. Jared is his Christian name.
I have a couple of things that we could talk about.
Okay, let's go.
You cool? You cool with that?
Let's go.
Okay. There are a lot, as stated previously, a lot of different creatures that are within the Feywild, and I have a couple of stat blocks of some of my personal favorites.
Oh.
Now, do we want to first tackle the Darklings, or do you want me to go through some while you bring up the Darklings?
It's perfectly fine. We can talk about whatever. This is our show. We have no parents.
Yeah.
We can eat all the nobody can tell us when to go to bed. We can eat all the ice cream we want.
Absolutely. One of my personal favorites, and just some creepy little guys, are the Chorids. They're categorized as small fae. They are chaotic neutral, most of them. And gosh golly, are they strong? They have 23 strength base, 20 constitution, and one of my favorite abilities that they have is called Command Hair. The Chorid has at least one 50-foot long rope woven out of its hair, and as a bonus action, the Chorid commands one such rope within as a bonus action, I should say.
Ooh.
The Chorid commands one such rope within 30 feet of it to move up to 20 feet and entangle a large or smaller creature that the Chorid can see. It has to succeed on a DC 13 dexterity saving throw or become grappled. And until this grapple ends, the target is restrained, and when it is... Oh, no, I read it wrong. I'm so sorry. Chorid can use his bonus action to then release the target. And if it is freed, it is also freed if the cord dies or it becomes incapacitated. But he just has a rope of his own hair that he just can toss at someone, and then it holds on for dear life.
You
And
mean
that's
Wonder Woman's lasso?
yeah, or Wonder Woman's lasso. I was gonna say Rapunzel, but it's not exactly like Rapunzel.
She's got a
1320s
frying pan.
Rapunzel. That would work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, controls hair. Very interesting and very fun. They're just little creepy critters. They also have an AC of 17, which is their natural armor. That's without armor. It's natural. They got
Ow.
stone strength. They also have stone camouflage. Because despite being fully covered in hair, they somehow blend in with the rocks.
They're hairy rocks.
They're hairy rocks. Just imagine like very mossy rocks.
I mean, yeah, he's a bit of a fixer-upper, but it's okay.
He's a bit of a fixer-upper.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will make references like crazy. That is what I do. Just be glad I'm sticking to this millennium on them. Anyway.
It is appreciated. Bless.
I feel so old.
I'm so sorry.
Is this what John feels like? Oh no.
I'm so sorry. But yeah.
Nah, it's all good. So, I mean, that's great. But what about some of the interesting... So, one of my personal favorites of the Feywild, right? And I like to put him in there as a random encounter if I'm going to have them in the Feywild. He's always on my random encounter chart. Always.
Always.
You're going to love this. Look up the Mirage Dragon.
That sounds really cool.
Oh, it is very cool.
Oh, he's pretty.
And he fights you with illusionary magic. So, this dragon, it's got its claws, it's got its tail, it's got its brute strength. I mean, it is still a dragon in every sense, right? But its core magic is illusion-based, right? So, it can literally, any sort of illusionary spell, right? This thing has access to. So, imagine, if you will, right? A dragon that casts mirror image on itself. Or a dragon that casts disguise self. Or shapeshift. Or something along those lines,
Hallucinatory terrain.
Uh-huh. Oh, look. Oh, no. Look out. Oh, no, that ledge? No, that's not a ledge that falls into a ravine. No, not at all. That's a plane that keeps going and going and going and going because I'm casting greater image in it. I have a built-in 20 on concentration checks. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Oh, no, you fell. Oh, no. How about that? Bye.
Oh my gosh. They also have psychic aura?
Yeah. Now granted, the Mirage Dragon is by nature it's a solitary creature and it's generally neutral. It's not evil and it's not good. It just kind of wants to do its own thing and have its own little party, right? But they can be really, really cool just encounters that happen because they don't perform a function in the Feywild, much like many of the creatures you'll find in the Feywild, right? They just kind of are there. And so they're very neat. My personal favorite is I always like having one, and if your players or whatnot happen to appease him, they have good conversation or whatnot, because a dragon always loves good conversation. Of course, right? He can grant them something. He can bless them with something. He can, he's got all this stuff that he can do, right? but it was the coolest thing I'd ever come across in a dragon because his main method of magic, his main method of battle is illusion. And I was like, that is so cool, right? It's that outside of the box thinking kind of stuff. So you have a lot of interestingness with it. But I absolutely love the Mirage Dragon.
Yeah, and the text description of it says that only a true dragon can transform into a Mirage Dragon, and only if it's born into the Feywild or remains there for an extended period of time. Mirage dragons are leaner and more colorful than other dragons, and some have moth or butterfly wings, depending on the extent of its changes. A dragon turtle who becomes a Mirage dragon have been known to develop rainbow-colored shells. That's just so cool. Oh my gosh. This is my favorite now. That's official. I love it. Oh my gosh. Y'all gotta add it. Y'all gotta add it in.
Right.
I want to see him in those Feywild campaigns.
Another thing that is one of the things that I've found that is interesting about monsters is you can take any monster and put them in the Feywild, right? And put a twist on it. Before I get into that, let's talk about another one of the monsters that you really like.
Yes. I feel like nothing can top that.
Well, I mean, so...
But...
What? No, I was gonna say. I mean, it's not a one-upmanship kind of thing or whatever.
No, of course.
We just have the ones that we like.
It definitely is. It definitely is a one-upmanship.
Okay, technically, there are stats for a Jabberwocky. Okay, I'm just putting that out there.
That's true. That is true. Now this isn't really a fighting creature, but it is one of my favorites. Let's say you're either in the Feywild or the material plane. You come across a person that is selling exotic animals out of a cart. What is that? Oh, you see a dog, but it's not an ordinary dog. Oh, no. It's a blink dog. What's that? A bunny? But it has a horn. It's an Almirage. They got such cool little creatures that are so freaking cute.
They do.
But so deadly.
They do, and they're the most vicious, ornery rabbit you've ever seen this side of the realms.
It is
sharp,
true.
pointy teeth.
Almirages can ram their enemies, stab them with their horns, and inflict a lot of damage. They also can burrow, that's what I meant, and attack enemies from surprise. And blink dogs are very great because they have a teleport that recharges on a 4 to 6 on a d6. And it can just teleport up to 40 feet to an unoccupied space before or after the dog can make a bite attack.
Yep.
And that just feels great. And they look spooky, but they're just the cute little doggos. They're just sweet little puppers.
They are.
We love them. And they understand Sylvan. And it also speaks Blink Dog. Don't know what that means, but it does. And I love it.
Fair enough.
I gotta say, it's not as the best as Bach in Dark Sun, but we'll take it. Cute dog.
I mean, that's fair.
Few is better than Bach in Dark Sun. And if you guys, by the way, don't watch Dark Sun, you totally should. Check it out. Tuesdays, it's great. Plugging it in. I have to.
Fair enough. All right. I love Dark Sun. I do. No, don't get me wrong. I love Dark Sun.
But we're not talking about Dark Sun.
One of my favorite monsters for the Feywild isn't actually a monster that's from the Feywild, but it isn't. It's all depending upon which edition you're looking at, right? But a really common monster in the Feywild, right, is a displacer beast.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I fought one of those once.
One of the things is their favorite food is to hunt pixies and gnomes in the Feywild.
Oh, those poor pixies and gnomes.
Right? One of the other things too is that you can do is you can always take your favorite dragon, your favorite thing, and put it in the Feywild, right? That is something you can always do, right? You just give it a little bit of a twist. one of the things that I've definitely seen that can happen in the Feywild, if you want, one of the big thing is if you want to run like kind of like a political game, a little, I mean, for fantasy, right? And you really want to
Which
get
I
in
love.
there and whatnot, right? The like what Rachel was talking about earlier, the courts, the Feywild courts, and all that stuff.
They work
They're
so well.
they're like if you have a bunch of bards and stuff like that, yeah, no, you can have a field day with that. Talking and like social manipulating and whatnot. And one other thing that I've seen that I absolutely love, right? This is a homebrew rule thing I found on Reddit or whatnot. Was so having a different kind of damage tracker, right? Now, as a GM, we can add to and take away as much as we want to when it comes to our games, right? So with the Feywild, right? There's a lot of social maneuvering that has to happen in certain times, right? And your words can be just as deadly as an actual sword, right? Um, yes, there's red caps. We'll get to that. I was just putting up a couple of monsters. Okay, it's all good. We're talking about monsters and stuff. Anyway, um, uh, but taking, giving yourself social hit points, right?
Oh, I love that. Where's my notepad?
So, social hit points, right? Again, this is something I've stolen from other games and compared it with Reddit and whatnot, right? You take whichever mental skill that you feel is your best, right? Okay. You take your mental skill because you have performance checks. You have, you have performance checks. You have, insight and deception and all kinds of stuff like that that you can do. Right.
History.
Well,
Can recall social
I
fairy
wouldn't, I
tales
wouldn't.
you've read.
I mean, you could, but the whole
Investigation?
point is talking. The whole point is talking,
That's fair.
right?
That's fair.
And it's that whole or debate, what have you, right? Okay. So you take whichever one is your best one, probably in most people's cases, who are going to engage in this, charisma, or maybe even intelligence if you're super intelligent on, like choosing your words and whatnot, right? And then you simply your use whatever your modifier is, right, for it, right? So let's say you have a 3. So anytime that you're successful, right, you do 3 points of damage, of social damage, right? When you take, we'll say, 10 points of social damage, right, you make a save, right, to see whether or not this conversation is worth you continuing having to try and prove your point, to out talk them, out debate them, whatever, right? Because that's one of the big things with Fae is conversation. They want to talk to you, right? But they're talking to you for a purpose, right? So you can have an entire form of battle, an entire form of combat for those folks that want to roll dice, that want to do shit, that want to hurt stuff when they're doing things, right? But make it a social combat encounter, right? And so you utilize those mechanics, right? And it's amazing at how quickly you can change things, right? I got the idea originally from playing Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones has social combat, right? I took that and I went, okay, cool. Did a little research, went and looked on Reddit, found a guy who had done it for D&D second edition is what he did it with, right? And then I went through and I looked at it and I made some tweaks to it to where I can put it in 5e, or if you want to put it in Pathfinder or older versions of D&D or whatnot, it still works about the same. You'll have to make some minor tweaks, but that's a thing that you can do. And a lot of times, if you're smart, you can trip up your opponent, and especially in the Feywild, words are binding. So if you get them to agree to something, or you get them to relent to something, right, then you've essentially won, right? And it's a way of having, like as Amanda put it, right? Special gatherings, Fae have no bloodshed allowed, right? But you've still got to be able to combat. You've got to make it interesting for everybody involved. And who knows? That barbarian that is like, can't add numbers together, but we love him to death, is actually a silver-tongued fox that can 100% talk his way out of most things. You just never really got the opportunity to, because it's not so much that he's smart. It's that he can, we've all been in those conversations where we've had to walk away because we know we're losing brain cells the longer we talk.
Just keep going in a circle, and eventually they'll just get sick of it.
Yeah, exactly, right? And you still won.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that idea. It has been
Welcome to Lore Masters Arcane, and we're going to teach you all kinds of cool shit about being a DM.
Come on in. It's great. You had mentioned earlier dragons. Right?
Oh, yes.
And how you get to do cool things with that. One of the, obviously, home variant of dragons being the fairy dragon, which
fairy
reminds
dragons
me
are cool.
a lot about the mirage dragons, except for the fact that they are these tiny itty-bitty dragons. One of my favorite things about them is that as they age, their scales change hue. So whether, like, if they're around 5 years or less, they're red, 6 to 10 is orange, 11 to 20 is yellow, so on and so forth, until you get to 51 years or more, in which they turn violet. And each hue that they get different spells attached to them. So if they're red, once per day, they can do Dancing Lights, Mage Hand, or Minor Illusion. Orange, they can do Color Spray. Yellow, Mirror Image. Green, Suggestion. Blue, Major Image. Indigo is Hallucinatory Terrain. And violet is Polymorph. And they're just really cool. And another one of my favorite things, because pretty much everything about them is my favorite thing, because they're really freaking cool, and you guys should totally add them. They have a thing called Euphoria Breath, which recharges on a 5 to 6 on a d6, and the dragon will exhale a puff of euphoria gas at one creature, and if it fails for 1 minute, can't take reactions, and they have to roll a d6 to determine their behavior at the start of their turn. On a 1 to 4, they take no action or bonus action and use all of their movement to run in a random direction. And on a 5 to 6, they don't move, and the only thing that they can do on their turn is make a wisdom saving throw to see if they succeed. So they basically just get lost in their own wonderland in their own brain, and I love it. I love them. They're fantastic. You should absolutely add them. They're so cool. And they're cute. Sort of. Their faces are a little scary, but the rest of them is really cute.
They look like little mini dragons with butterflies attached to them. I
Yes.
had one. I went and I found an image for one, but for whatever reason, I had a whole library of images. But for whatever reason, after this update, Streamlabs was not liking a lot of the formats for images that I had. So, boo on Streamlabs.
Boo
All
on
right.
Streamlabs.
So, yes.
Last thing. I'm so sorry.
No, you
They can also turn invisible as a bonus action. Superior invisibility. And they also have limited telepathy. They just got it all. Why wouldn't you use them? Please do. They're so cool.
I mean, yeah.
And Manda, if you crochet a pattern of that, please do send it to me. I want to witness its beauty and wonderfulness.
Amanda just DM me the thing. Oh my god,
Yeah.
this is cool. Sorry.
Oh, wait, she did do it?
She DM'd me the thing for it.
Oh, the thing. Do it. You have to. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
Make blue ones. Make little blue dragons.
Can do any color you want. Oh my gosh.
But I would like to point out that you just kind of glossed over the hallucination breath.
Wait, they have hallucination breath?
You said something about hallucination?
They have hallucinatory terrain.
Oh, I thought you had said hallucinate, like they could like breathe out hallucinations. I'm like, wait, they can
Add
what?
it. Why not? Throw it
Yeah,
in
there's
there.
the
Make your own
euphoria breath,
custom
yeah.
fairy dragon.
Oh my god. But on screen is one of my favorite Fey bad guys and random encounters, the red caps, because you can just be zany with red caps. Now, granted, red caps don't have to like kill everything that they see. They don't. They really don't, right? They are classified as chaotic evil, right? But they can be hilarious. Because you can convince them of things. They're kind of a lot, right? But you can interact with them, right? One of the things too, and yes, I will 100%. My red caps all have the same names. They all do. They all have these outlandish names like Schmebulok, Gravity Falls fans.
Yes,
My
man.
And then there's always the one guy named like Brian. Like,
Dave.
and he's the one who does all the talking, right? Like the rest of them are all like gibbling, drooling idiots or whatnot. And they're, and like, this is Grolthnar, this is Schmebulok, this is Montilli, and what's your name, Mike? that okay. Hi, Mike. And so like they're fun. They're vicious little guys. And beware them in numbers. And they're not like super little, right? Like red caps, they're I've seen
medium.
They're medium creatures, right? But it's all like red caps have been done in several different ways, right?
Yeah.
But the big thing about red caps that I always love is yes, they can Schmebulok, right? How is that not the perfect name, right?
It is.
Thank you, Gravity Falls, for the greatest name for a gnome or a red cap. Schmebulok.
They've really done it.
But one of the things that I love about them is you can just be absolutely crazy with them. And you don't have to be like over the top crazy, but you can just be like that little bit of zany. I'm going to date myself a little bit here or whatnot, but many of the chat will agree with me. You get to bring out your inner freakazoid and have conversations. Right, with your players as a freakazoid.
That's just the best part of being a DM is pulling out those silly voices and just going ham.
Right, but they're great. They're great adversaries because they're kind of around everywhere, right? And they're cool little dudes. I have always thought about having like a little murderous red cap, right, as like a guide for the players, right? So like, okay, so hear me out, right? So like, oh crap, I can't remember his name. In Ravenloft, the Curse of Strahd, New Ravenloft, right? There's an imp, and Justin would get mad at me for not remembering his name because he was a staple for our group for a very, very, very long time.
And you've still forgotten it.
And I've forgotten it right now. I'm blanking on it. Fucking TBI, it's a thing, right?
That's so funny. Not the TBI, just
anybody.
Just the of the
if
name.
you played Curse of Strahd, you know the little imp that I'm talking about. But making a little red cap that's like their guide who doesn't always tell them the Majesto the imp. There you go. Brain worky. Who can be like your little guide, right? Who's taking them around. And he may not always lead them to the best places, right? But it's going to be interesting no matter what. And I imagine that he probably, this cute little red cap or whatever, right? He's like, look at this dude. Tell me this dude wouldn't have RTA tattooed on him somewhere, right? Just look at him like, respect to Alpha, right? Like, I'm like, yeah, all right. Okay, I'm going to like my inner Travis Willingham is going to come out in this red cap right there, right?
Love that man.
But I do absolutely adore red caps because they're vicious, right? They really are. They're really vicious, right? But they can just be out of this world zany, right?
Like, looking at the stat sheet of a red cap, first thing that sticks out, you guys want to know why they're called red caps? It's because they have to soak their cap in the blood of a humanoid that's been dead for no longer than 1 hour, at least 3 times a day. And every 24 hours past the 3rd day that it goes without soaking its cap in blood, it suffers 1 level of exhaustion. And it is only reduced when it sleeps after soaking its red cap in human blood.
Well, humanoid,
sorry. Yes, you're right.
Murder dwarves. Yeah.
But, like, that's wild.
I love it because like it's great because like if you get into a lot of combat, right? They're handy because you can just like send them out to murder and they're happy, right? Like they're just like you just point them at the enemy and just let them go.
They literally live with the bloodshed. You are so right, Mando.
They 100% do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Oh wow.
Oh my goodness. All right.
This has been fun. This has been great. This has been a
This is
great
amazing.
conversation.
All
A
right.
couple of I'm just gonna do 2 little throwouts of if you guys haven't checked out Boggles or Quicklings, very cool as well. Totally check them out. However, we are a little past when we were supposed to be done.
We are, but we were told to go a little longer tonight.
You're so right. Because John had made a special request.
He had.
Because we're just so wonderful, and he totally
because
just
we're
wants us
so
to
wonderful.
Keep
It absolutely has nothing to do with the person that we're supposed to raid into is
Definitely
getting a late start today. Not at all.
Not at all. We're just that fantastic. You guys just love us that much, and we appreciate you sticking around with us. Thank you for being here. It's been great.
Right?
It's been so much fun.
It is great. But no. Things about the Feywild that are very important to know, right, is that you can have a lot of fun in the Feywild. The laws are a little bit loosey-goosey. And if you don't want to do a whole lot of research, right, and it's okay, not all of us do. If you don't want to do a whole lot of research or a whole lot of reading when it comes to this stuff, right, you can, like, for real, watch The Neverending Story. The first one, not the second one. The first one, right? And you have a solid visual representation of what it's like to be in the Feywild. Labyrinth with David Bowie, right?
Oh.
Don't stare at his junk jiggling, but the idea of this maze, this giant hedge maze, because a hedge maze is a big thing in the Feywild.
There's literally the maze of Fothigan, which is in 4E, which is home to the Dryad Queen and all her people, and it is this massive labyrinth that is impossible to get through unless you know where you're going. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed this. Thank you, Twy, for the kind words.
Nope, I don't want to do that. Wrong thing. Oh. No!
Our faces! Oh no, they're back.
They're back. No, it's my computer being dumb. But no, if you get a chance, right? So what I would recommend is there's several PDFs that you can access or whatnot on the web about the Feywild. If you have the D&D book, if you have the D&D books for it or whatnot, give the Feywild a run. It is fun. It is fun, and it can be very, very fun. I may or may not at some point go run into the thick of it. That could be a thing that happens at some point.
Please
I don't know.
Do. It is one of my favorite realms. It is also just happens to be the realm that I know the most about, which is why it's my favorite, because I don't know much about the others, and we might deep dive into those later on when we have the chance.
Yeah.
But it's just such a rich environment. There's an abundance of opportunities for creative storytelling. You can go literally any way, and it will make sense in the Feywild, because nothing makes sense in the Feywild. And it's just so cool and so neat. And 1000%, if you are interested in running it, just do it. It's gonna be some of the most fun. I can promise you that. It is fantastic and wonderful, and just I cannot speak higher about it.
If you're wanting a bit more of the highbrow when it comes to your Fey encounters, right? There was a series that was on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's still there or not, right? But I know it can be found on the great wide interwebs, right? And it's called The Story of Mr. Strange and Dr. Norbert, I believe, right? And it has basically it's an alternate setting, England, right? At the turn of the century. And they deal with Doppler, help me out. It's the Thistle Man, right? I think is what he's called, the Thistle Man. The white hair and the green suit. Crap, I want to say it's called the Thistle Man. But anyway,
get back to you.
Yeah. Anyway, he is a Fey. And he keeps tricking the characters into going into the Feywild. And it's the gentleman with the thistle down hair. Thank you, that's what it's called, right? But
That's
he is
just his name?
that's his name.
That's so cool. That's so Fey.
He is a fucking Fey, right? But his whole thing is like you enter his world through pictures and stuff, right? And like his whole world that you see that he has a dance where he convinces people to go party, right? But for him, he doesn't get tired. He doesn't get hungry. His legs don't hurt, right? So like you see him dancing with all these people and all these people who he's brought there, right? Like their shoes are bleeding, right? You can see the blood coming through it. People are falling over dead because they haven't stopped dancing for days, right? It is it is oh man, it is good. But it is a darker look at the Feywild and at the world of the Fey, correction. And they have this one scene in there that always sticks in my mind when it comes to how do you get in and out of the Fey when they go through mirrors. It's mirrors that they go through. They go through mirrors, right? And you see it, and it's all these. What is that very famous painting where like all the stairs are leading to all the different areas, and it's like upside down and all that stuff or whatever,
I can
right?
picture it.
You know what I'm talking about, right? But all the doorways go to different places in the world, and it's like the world in between almost, right? And that's how like he gets around and he does stuff, and then they figure out that they can go inside there and go around and do stuff, and it's neat. But it is a cool way to see how a Fey coming into the material plane can affect things, and how things that are in the Fey work. And always remember, when you're in the Fey, don't forget your bell. Little ring bell. Always have your bell.
This also kind of leads to the very fun rule of don't dance with the Fae. It's a rule that I've read on a couple of sources because, as he said, it won't turn out well for you.
Yes.
And there's so many more fun rules that you can look up as well. I, for one, very much enjoy doing research, and if you are similar to me, there are so many sources out there for you to look through.
Yes.
So many people are incredibly creative and so cool.
Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Yes, that is what I'm talking about. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. That's what it's called. But anyway, friends, I want to thank you all. I can't get the braid button to work, so if you will do me a kind favor, friends or whatnot, we're about to close out. Jump on over to Lord Gazumba's stream. Go give him a shout out. Go say hello or whatnot. And what have you. We will see you all here on Sunday, I believe, for Tears of Erd. I believe that's happening on Sunday.
Oh, it is, but he is not live yet, it seems, which is why the red button is not working.
Jay is not live yet. Okay. Well, we're at the tail end. We're at the tail end.
Hey, I got more I can talk about. I really like the Feywild.
I'm out. I'm done.
Oh, is it your hair? You must go fix it.
No, it's not that. I've got everything that I've talked about off my sheet. I'm good.
That's fair.
And I don't know. Well, the whole thing is that Jay's caught up at a function for one of his kids at school. So it's we don't know. He said hopefully by this time. So we don't know, kind of thing. We don't actually know when he's going live. It was a delayed a little bit to see if we could rate in kind of thing or whatnot, right?
Got it.
So he has a school. So I am not gonna keep going. Okay, you know what, Rachel, go. You go. You go.
Hey, you want to bring up the 4E map for me?
Which one?
It's the one that we showed initially with all of the areas that the broken stone veil that you were very much intrigued into.
That one.
I can certainly talk for an extra 10 minutes. I got you.
Well, there you
no
go.
Worries.
That's why there's more than one person on the show.
Aboria, which, by the way, as I mentioned at the beginning, is the 2E map of what the Feywild would eventually become. They took Arvindor, which was the top layer of those 3 layers, smushed it with the 3E map of the realm of fairies, and made it into what we see now. over here? Is it over here or is it over here? I don't know how
Other
to
way,
position
other
my
way,
hands.
other way,
Other way, this way.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yep, there you go.
right here,
Yep.
as we see right here, which is the 4E map of the Feywild, and has kind of extended into the 5E map. Now, there's a lot of really cool locations here. And if you ever, once again, are like me and want to do some research, there is plenty of material to look through here, such as I mentioned, the maze of Fathagon. There are the plains of Echoing Thunder, which are home to centaur tribes. It's Echoing Thunder because they're just running around all the time everywhere, and it's really loud. There is the Broken Stone Vale that we talked about, which is the kingdom of the lycanthropes. There's Noctur, which is ruled by Jared, of course.
The Goblin King.
Yes, the most powerful kingdom of goblins within the 4E. And gosh golly, I could go on forever. There's the kingdom of the sea lands, which holds the Coral Court, which I did not really address that much. But man, they're really cool. I want to make sure that I give you guys the correct information. So I'm going to pull up something just to make sure I'm not speaking incorrectly. So the Court of Coral is ruled by brother and sister Eladrin, which are known as the Sea Lords, which is Elias and Siobhan Alistai, or Alistay. Elias rules the shallow waters, while Siobhan rules the deep ocean, and that's just a fun dynamic. And who knows, perhaps there's a little bit of war going on between them, if that's something you want to throw in, add some sibling rivalries in there, and it'll just be compelling, wonderful, amazing. One of the locations that I find the coolest within this land is the home of Queen Titania, which is where the Summer Court resides, which is Senalisi. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's at least spelled Senaliesse. So I think it's Senalisi, but I could be wrong. And it is essentially takes place suspended on top of a massive tree. That way no one can see it from the bottom, and only those that are meant to be there and should be there are there. It is where the Court of Stars that I mentioned previously regularly meets, and it is also encompassing of the Domains of Delight, which we didn't even get to talk about. Domains of Delight are kind of similar to the Domains of Dread in the Shadowfell. They mirror each other in that there is a Domain of Dread that is a carnival, and there's a similar one that is a Domain of Delight. And of course, it is both equally terrifying, but in two very different ways. And they're controlled by Titania. The city is, once again, constructed on a canopy of this massive silver tree, and it is very misty so that it is not visible. That's just a very cool place to have players eventually go, and to come up with how the heck are they gonna get to the top of it. Lots of different events could take place in order to do so. There's lots of different spells. I love, for one, as a DM and as a player, seeing how creative characters can be with their spells. Because man, it can be wild. There is, I can just keep listing. Did I ever mention that the Gloaming Court is the same as the Winter Court?
No.
Hey guys, the Winter Court can go by a lot of different names, one of which is the Gloaming Court, which is the Unseelie Court, essentially, and has the intense rivalry between sisters, which is Queen Titania. And although a lot of those within the Gloaming Court can be seen as evil, which once again we talked about, there's not really a good or an evil. The primary difference is that it's the former rejects of the Seelie civilization. which makes them seen as evil, even though, once again, no such thing in the Feywild. How fun is that? I don't think we really went in depth or talked much about the courtless individuals, which I suppose technically we did, but I didn't tell you guys. Hey there, folks and fellas, and others out there. Those that are in like the Brokenstone Vale and the Noctur and Plains of Echoing Thunder and the Maze of Thathagan, all of those are considered courtless and go by their own rulings. Because, as we know, hopefully, the those that are in the courts, especially within the inner and outer circles of the Sealy Court and within the, I guess, hierarchy of the Unseelie Court, they are considered like they're archfey, which are kind of considered gods or at the very least, powerful entities that govern the specific sections of the Feywild. But they can't govern everything. They're not everywhere all at once.
Oh, no.
They may be powerful, but they can't see everything. And so that's where all of these other civilizations come into play. And you can throw in so many different types of rules and how their governing works. Like we talked about, what the heck does a kingdom of lycanthropes look like? How do they function? What is the governing force there? Is there a governing force, or are they just doing whatever the heck they want?
There's a lot to explore.
There's so much. I could just keep going. I'm very good at rambling.
No, it's not. That's not rambling. That's like as a DM, right? That means that it's ripe for us to, like as DMs to be able to explore, to expand upon or whatnot, right? It's a take advantage of the chaos and like build your world around it, and like because there's no set I don't want to use the word canon, right? But with the Feywild, they have very, very generalized forms of government and very generalized forms of how things operate. So you can have a lot of fun with that and really kind of just essentially make your own little fun house within the Feywild, because a lot of the rules that we normally would use to govern adventures and how we tell adventures and how we do things and whatnot, you can kind of really just turn them on their heads with a lot of that stuff. I was checking Reddit here or whatnot. One person was saying that in the Feywild they make everything work the opposite.
It's opposite day, guys.
So they have to, just as simple as that. Everything's opposite, right? So like poisons cure you and cure wounds poisons you, stuff like that. Bane gives you bless gives you bane, stuff like that. Like I was just like,
so it's the same with magic. That's so cool.
Yeah, right.
Like, the
whole premise of the game was that magic in the material world was going wonky, right? And they somehow got into the Feywild, and they're saying how that was the whole premise, was because magic had got turned on its head in the Feywild, it was affecting the other realms, right? And so that was like, that would be really cool, right? Like, that would be really neat to do. Like, you've got to fix the magic, that exists out there. Like, I'm like, okay, I could get behind that. I could 100% get behind that. That'd be a fun little game.
Yeah.
I don't think it would work for long-term campaign aspect, but I think it would work for, 1 or 2 nights or something like that.
Yeah, a couple shot.
Yeah, a couple shot. Well, even inside of a campaign, even inside of a regular campaign.
Oh, yeah, right? Just going in to fix it up.
Just going in there as like a side quest to kind of fix some stuff or whatever. Or, receiving amulets while there, where your magic is allowed to work. And so, like, all the other courts are, like, coming to you, wanting your help because your stuff is working as intended. And, like, there's a whole lot of stuff that you can do with that.
Yeah. Just to talk a little bit about the...
Hang on.
What if?
What if what if that changed depending upon the border you were on? So maybe the summer it was normal, but in the winter it was reversed or based off of which corner. That
That's
could be cool.
fun. I'm
Yeah, that
writing
could be.
it down.
Yep. Write that down. Write
I'm
that
writing it down.
down.
Write it down. Write it down. I was going to say that in the campaign that I was going to be running,
Mm-hmm.
the whole purpose, which once again, if you guys haven't seen Dimension 20s, A Court of Fey and Flowers, it takes place in the Bloom, which is essentially a celebration of magic where there's a lot more of it. And I was taking that, calling it the Festival of Flourishing, where this happens every. I never set a specific date because time is wonky, but a very long time. There is a rush of magic that comes in, a ritual that must be performed to make sure the land is imbued with this magic, and then the rest is just a heckin' party where people can go crazy and things, politics go wild because everything and everyone is so much more powerful. And I was kind of going with the idea that you mentioned of in the Feywild how everything is imbued with magic, and so everything is more powerful. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, but like by 10. um, and totally forgot where I was going with this because the train left the station without my brain.
That happens.
I'll catch the next one. However,
However,
once
comma.
again, going on about the ramble that I love, the Prince of Frost was not mentioned by me, and I feel like he needs to be. He's also called the Pale Prince or
Mm-hmm.
the Lord of the Long Night. Um, and essentially, he rules over the Vale of Long Night in the Feywild, which similar to the Winter Court. I think it actually takes place in the Winter Court. It's just his own little separate section.
Mm-hmm.
But his backstory is really cool because he once was Titania's son. He was known as the Sun Prince. And his realm was a place of light and summer and warmth. And there were daughters of delight that lived in that realm as well. However, there was a woman that he loved named Shareya. And Shareya eventually grew bored of this endless revelry and decided that she would leave for the material plane. And she fell in love with a dude, just a dude, a mortal hero. And she decided to basically just up and abandon this dude that loved her very much, go to the mortal realm, run away, and the Sun Prince grew jealous and demanded that she honor her promise to marry him. And when she refused, he essentially went into immense mourning. And the Sun Prince grew very bitter and sorrowful, and the sunny realm then turned into the Winter of Night, and he made a bargain with the Raven Queen to cast her soul and her lover's soul far away from each other, so that they would not ever be together. It's basically just the epitome of a bitter ex. And instead of the Daughters of Delight, they were now twisted by his sorrow to become the Sisters of Lament. And this is one of my favorite aspects of the Feywild, is that the realms that are
Yes.
ruled over by specific beings often change on their whims and their emotions and are controlled by how they are feeling. And that can lead to a lot of ridiculously wild things. And yeah, just fun stuff. And yes, as my brother mentioned and Manda mentioned, oh my goodness, she brought it up first, is the Dresden Files. Do you know about the Dresden Files?
I do know about the hockey stick wielding badass from Chicago.
Heck yeah, because I can't curse. It's very good, and also one of the things that you guys should check out if you are wanting more information about the Feywild, because there are really cool beings in there.
There are like I was saying, for resources for the Feywild, right? There is a plethora of books. There is so much out there. I mean, I would even go so far as, if you're familiar with the sci-fi series The Magicians,
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Right? The way that they talk about these realms, I can't remember what the name of it's called now. But the fact that they go to these other realms, all throughout these books or whatnot, like that's very, very Feywild like, right? And how their big bad evil guy or whatever, right, is like this dude with like flies buzzing all around his face, or hornets,
Moths, I think.
or moths. Yeah, that's what it was. It was
Yeah.
moths, right? You know, stuff like that or whatnot. They are great visuals, because for me, a lot of times, like, it's that I spend enough time reading mechanics. A lot of times I just need to watch a show to kind of get some vibes or whatnot, right? Catch a movie or whatnot. They're really good. Another depending upon the world you want to set in, right? A cool world to where you can have a blurring effect between the Fey realm and like a material realm type place, right? It would be like if you played an Eberron, right? Because Eberron is super tied closely to the Fey realm, right? And of course, you can watch Carnival Row and get a solid impression of how that would kind of look, right? You could translate a lot of that stuff over. It's there's a plethora. The big thing about the Feywild, that is neat, is as a DM, every DM should at least attempt to dabble in it just a little bit, even if it's only for like a single session, right? Where they just kind of tip their toe in it, you know, like it is a lot of fun. I have gotten the word that old Lord Gazumba here is supposed to be going live here in the next like 5 or so minutes. So, I want to thank everybody who stuck it out with us, who hung out with us as we drug this out a little bit longer than initially thought. Because we're like, all right, Jay, come on, show up. We're waiting for you to show up.
He's got this.
He's
gotta support his kiddos.
But no, thank you all for looking at this. If you like the deep dives, if you guys like the deep dives and the incessant rambling that we will do about realms, about different places or whatnot, right? Jump in the Discord, jump down into Lore Masters, throw up, hey, talk about this place or talk about that place, right? And we're happy to do deep dives into them, right? The only thing that we request is that if we're going to do a deep dive about it, right, it has to be something that we can actually find. If it's an out of print thing or something along those lines, right, that we can't actually research, it makes it a little bit more difficult. I'm always.
It makes me sad because I like research.
Yes.
Let me research.
I like plane hopping. I like looking around at different realms, all that stuff. You can expect in October we're gonna do another deep dive, right? With or without John, depends upon if he's, if he wants to participate or whatnot. But I'm here to tell you that in October we're gonna do a deep dive of the Realms of Dread. Why? Because it's Kurt's favorite place to run around next to Avernus. Avernus I like for different reasons.
Avernus is pretty fun.
Avernus
and then you can ramble, and I can
the way she rambles about the Feywild is how I can ramble about the Dread Realms and the Shadowfell. That's my thing.
Shadowfell's really cool.
The Shadowfell is really dope. But thank you everybody who's sticking around with us. We have Tears of Air
cosplay edition
on Sunday.
Edition, you gotta be there. And 1-year anniversary of us starting Tears
That
of
is
Air.
right. That is right. It is a 1-year anniversary, so you gotta make sure that you are there. It is gonna be a blast. It's gonna be awesome.
So fun.
Right?
And
Rachel will put in the gold contacts. It'll be great.
It's true. It's going to be topical as well because we're going into the forest, which is deemed to be kind of taken over by the Fae. And you all love that. We love that. That's why you've stuck around for so long.
Right?
Come check it out. It's going to be awesome.
Don't miss it. I believe we have Fall of Red Dawn on Sunday as well. I believe Sunday's a doubleheader.
I believe that is true because Sunday they didn't have it.
Yeah, if my calendar I'm looking at is correct.
Yes. Fall of Red Dawn.
It is a doubleheader. Yep.
You guys,
Fall of Red Dawn. We're royally
back. If you're doing anything on Sundays, take it all off because you got a doubleheader. Amazing stuff. Rory's been working
right.
so hard on it, and it's so awesome.
And then next week we'll be back with regular Dark Sun. That's the word. I'm losing my words. I'm running out of words.
Tuesdays.
And
we just
then
had a fantastic session. You all have to come on in.
And then next Wednesday, Rachel and I at least will. Rachel will see you on Sunday. I'll see you here next Wednesday. But we know you're just here for her. It's okay. But thank you everybody for hanging out with us. Let me get this raid thingy set up to make sure that I'm doing it right.
And while you do so, should I ask the question?
You should.
Folks, loves, those that have stuck around with us for so long, if you're watching and you haven't followed, first of all, what are you doing? It is free. We push out so much amazing content for you guys. It's amazing. You all could follow, give us some love, figure out when it's all going down, get a notification for it. And if you're watching and you haven't subbed, did you know that it's free with Amazon Prime? You can just follow monthly. You have to renew it every month, but that just shows your dedication to the blue box. And then, lastly, if you're watching and you were a sub, but your sub has not subscribed, I'm so sorry, has expired. Oh, God. As John would say, it's exactly blue. We have one question for you. What
are you doing? Give us a follow, give us a sub, hang out with us, support this amazing community that is just amazing. It is an amazing community. I have gone from community to community, and this is one of the best ones that I have found so far. I guess.
And if you want to be further a part of this community, join the Discord, because we're talking there daily. Yes. We're having good role play. We're having good conversations. It's just a hoot and a holler all around. And John is really French Canadian. You are right, Justinius.
Is he really?
No.
Oh.
He just says play blue all the time.
You had me. Not gonna
I said
lie.
it once again. I'm a liar. I told you guys, I'm a liar. Get used to it.
Oh, man. Anyway, all right. Jay is not populating for a raid yet. I'm guessing he is still not live, but we are tapped.
Still not live.
We are tapped out, friends.
We are tapped out. I'm so sorry.
We are tapped out. Thank you, everybody, once again for hanging out with us and our extended version of LMA this week. We will see the special edition. We will all catch you here next time, friends.
Yes.
And once again, bye.
Bye.